Welcome to The Grow Show, powered by Steel. On The Grow Show, we share ideas, tips, tactics, and insights to help you grow your landscaping business based on our team's 40 years of experience running a landscaping company and working with other owners and their teams to do the same. New episodes are released weekly on Wednesdays. Without further ado, here's your host, Marty Grunder.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the case may be. This is Marty Grunder from Grunder Landscaping Company and the Grow Group with another exciting edition of the Grow Show. And today, folks, you are in for a real treat. We have my good friend, fellow landscape professional, Chris Joyce from the Joyce Companies, Marstons Mills, Massachusetts. Chris, how are you?
I'm great, Marty. Beautiful Chris, out today.
It is beautiful. It's beautiful here today in Dayton. Chris, I can't remember how many years ago we've met, but when I think of you, I just smile because you're just fun. You are, when I think of someone who, by their actions, you can tell they enjoy their work, I think of Chris Joyce. And so before we get started into some of the meat and potatoes, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself and maybe some of the big events that got you to where you are right now. Talk to us.
So I'm about to be 52 years old next month. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. I'm the father of 4 children, 3 boys and a young girl. I'm married to my wife, Allison, for 22 years. I live and work in the place where I grew up, which is on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, which you have to go over a bridge to get here. So it was a pretty cool place to grow up. Little did I know it would be a very good place to run a residential landscape company, but sometimes the stars align and it worked out really well for me. Probably I think the biggest event that got me where I am today is I was brought up by a single parent, my mother. We had a humble childhood, and you had to work very hard for everything, you had, and it made you very hungry. I was fortunate at early age to get into landscaping. It was a passion of mine. I never thought I'd be where I am today, but I just think that growing up in a huge family with not a lot was probably the number one factor that has driven me today.
Why is that? Was it because that made you hungry? What did that do for you? Because where you live is a pretty ritzy area.
It is, but we weren't the ritzy family, right? So, I just, especially being the youngest of 6, it just, not having a lot made you want to have a lot. And
so well said.
Yeah. Wanted stability and a lot more.
Yeah. I look back on my childhood, Chris, and we've talked a lot. We're good friends. And I don't want to get too overstated here, but I feel very fortunate that I grew up in a similar situation. I shared a bedroom with my brother and sister. Our grandmother lived with us. We didn't have anything. But I learned a lot from that process, and it certainly gave me drive that, again, Chris, like we've talked about, I didn't say now I'm going to go do this and I'm bound and determined based on all these inadequacies I've received in life. It wasn't anything like that. It's just that I had 2 very hardworking parents that, worked hard to send us, borrowed money to send us to a private high school because they didn't like the public high school. I didn't even know they borrowed money for that, but a similar situation to what you're talking about where, I think it gave us some drive. Let's talk a little bit about you personally. What do you do for fun?
Well, I was very involved when my kids were younger. I coached youth football for 25 years. Last year was my last year. That was a big passion of mine. I'm very involved in the community. I was a chairman of the school. I was in the school committee for 8 years. I was chairman for the last 2 years. I do a lot of nonprofit work. Now that my kids are older and they're into golf, my wife and my sons and I are starting to play some golf together, which has been a lot of fun.
Awesome.
I like to travel, work on my house, all the above is kind of what I like.
So the Joyce Companies is a tremendous operation. I've been out there several times. Beautiful area, incredible clientele. Tell us a little bit about the business itself. Maybe if you wouldn't mind sharing the revenue and the business mix, give us a little bit of insight into what makes Joyce Companies so successful out there on the Cape?
So we, like all probably entrepreneurs, when we first got started, we tried to be everything to everybody, and we've continued to hone that in and hone that in and hone that in. And we're a residential contractor, high-end residential contractor. And what we concentrate on is we're unique here. So we market ourselves as the Joyce Companies. We have a Joyce Landscaping, which is the animal of the three. We have Always Green at Cape Cod, which is a lawn care company. And then we have Grassroots Irrigation, which is an irrigation company. What we do differently than anyone else in the marketplace is we're the first person on the job site, and then we want to be the last person to maintain. So we do site excavation. So we're digging the cellar hole. We're building the chimneys. We're building the patios. We're softscaping it. We're finished landscaping it, and then we're maintaining it. So we have kind of a vertical integration in a number of other sub facets, and that's probably what does very well for us.
And so you have some heavy equipment, because I've seen it, large excavators, all kinds of loaders, heavy artillery, as I would say, dump trucks, horizontal grinders. I mean, you've got a lot of heavy equipment to get that stuff done. And tell us a little bit about how you sell the jobs. Are these salespeople on your team selling them, or is it relationships with architects? Tell us a little bit about how you get work.
Almost everything we do is a relationship. Right. So it's either, a landscape architect or a high-end builder or a engineer in town. They're putting the teams together, or this person's going to buy this house. It's on the water. It's a tear down. It's got conservation. And before the project starts, the landscape architect's been hired, the building architect, the builder, the landscape contractor, and that's kind of how it works. We go in as part of the team, and it's been very successful for us.
Yeah, and what will your revenues be this year?
Combined between all of the companies, we could tip $29 million.
Yeah, $29 million for a guy that grew up in an area without a whole lot. I mean, it's just an awesome story. Ladies and gentlemen, we're with Chris Joyce from the Joyce Companies, Marstons Mills, Massachusetts, the Grow Show powered by Steel. Chris, when my wife and I were out east last year, we stopped by and we saw you for a couple days. And I'll tell you, the thing that impressed me the most, aside from your lovely family and your commitment to them, it was like when we drove, you were like giving me play-by-play. Well, that person lives there, but they used to live over there, and I worked for them at that place, and now they have this going on, and supposedly they're doing something in the backyard. I mean, we went in someone's basement and checked on the irrigation system. I mean, I was amazed, but I think I also saw why you're so successful. Relationships mean everything to you, even to me. We started out in a client relationship where we did some work with you. You're in our peer groups, but we've become friends, and I see why people enjoy being around you, Chris. You are a relationship type of person, and I think that's part of your leadership style. Tell us a little bit about your leadership style there at Joyce. Some of the things that you've learned, maybe some of the mistakes you've made. How do you get $29 million worth of work done and still have your people want to come into work? What are you doing?
It's a good question. And, as I've answered this question in the past, all of my mentors were coaches, right? So sports was a big part of my life. So
wow.
A lot of the stuff we do is based off coaching. So, we work really hard at culture here. And, I work really hard as the leader of this organization to understand who are the people that are working for us every single day, and trying to understand where they're coming from, what's their life about, and what makes them tick. So I work very hard at trying to understand everyone's name, maybe know about they have kids, that they married, and understand and celebrate the small victories. We always make sure we recognize their anniversary. We always recognize their birthdays. We try to recognize their anniversary, their children's birthday, and try to wrap, as I always say, to be a great leader in today's labor force, you need to lead with empathy. And you need to understand what's the challenges that's in their lives, and how can you work through that with them to get the most out of them and make them feel challenged and rewarded every single day. And that is hard lifting every single day. But we sometimes we do really well at it as a group. We do really well at it. Sometimes we make mistakes and overlook things so simple that are in our face. But we try to understand who our makeup is and how can we motivate them, and things that would motivate me don't motivate them. And it took me a long time to realize that. And once I did understand that, we were off to the races, and we've been very fortunate.
So, Chris, I'm 3 years older than you. When I was at the University of Dayton back in the late 80s, early 90s, I am not even sure I knew what the word empathy even meant. But I, like you, have developed empathy. It is part of leading with empathy. Did you learn that at Amherst? Were you 30 when the light bulb finally went off? Do you remember an epiphany? Did it just kind of all of a sudden happen, or when and how did empathy become part of your leadership?
I realized running this place like a drill sergeant wasn't going to work anymore. And I had to look and say, I need to change. So I went to a couple of conferences, through probably back at the time was maybe called ALCA or whatnot. Right. And, just listen to different ways to motivate and understanding what, and probably the most interesting talk I heard someone one time was, what's important to you probably isn't important to the people that are working with you or for you. And if you don't understand that, you're never going to be successful. And that was the aha moment for me, that I understood, okay, wow, that's not the most important thing to them. Money or family or different, time is important. The religion is important to them. Their family, and until I understood that, that was the aha moment. And it took me a long time once I learned that to implement that and do it well. And it's still, we make mistakes every single day. That stuff that's right in front of us that we don't really, from an employment standpoint, that we should do a better job at. But we try. As I say to everyone, we're going to keep trying. We sometimes fall down, but we'll keep trying.
Right. At 29 million in sales, and how many employees, Chris?
200 people.
200. That in itself is an overwhelming task at trying to keep in touch with all of them. I know even though you're that big, you still have a small business feel. Are you mentoring your other managers, to help them lead better? Are you still out there in the morning, every morning? Do you know all 200 people's names? Give us a little insight as to how you're able to grow and still keep these things important to you, such as leading with empathy, at the forefront.
So obviously at the size we've got, I can't be everything, right? So right. We have to train our management staff and production managers to try to lead the same way. And that's not always the easiest thing. Not everyone's me, not everyone's Marty.
Right.
But I'm still very hands-on. Like today was our Tuesday morning toolbox meeting, which we also celebrated birthdays and anniversaries. And we're having our summer outing on Friday, which is, families all invited. We talked about that. But I'm in the parking lot in the morning. We work out of one location, which for a company our size is a little chaotic, but it works for us right now. I don't think we can't grow much more out of here, but right. I'm fortunate that, all the horses are in the same stable, and I'm in the parking lot in the morning, which you learn a lot in a parking lot in 10 minutes. And I think that's been another key to our success, is my true investment in this operation and the people, and right. not losing sight of, okay, well, we're this huge company and I don't really need to be involved in that anymore. I've never lost sight of where I came from. And I want to make sure that the people that we're sending out on the road every single day, we're sending the best possible people with the best attitude. And that's, as everyone who's listening or whatever knows, that's not easy. And
no, it's not.
And some days it goes well, and some days you go, wow, I think we're smarter than this, and this didn't go well, but right. We try.
Well, and I saw it firsthand that you're in there every morning. I didn't see you on a loader or anything like that, but my guess would be if that's what needed to be done, you'd be on the loader, and you're present. And I've heard a lot of people say the same thing about me, that man, Marty, you're there. And I think if you're there and you're present, even just that mere act shows that you care, and a lot can come from that. Chris, a lot of our listeners have smaller companies and they struggle with operations. I wonder if you could share how you book work, schedule work. What are some maybe unique things that you do from an operational perspective that might help some of our contractors listening?
We have a different philosophy here. So everyone has their own book of business, right? So if you're on the maintenance team and you're a maintenance account manager on the residential side, you have your own book of business. So that's your customers. You manage that work. You have the client relationship. I don't have salespeople and then have production managers and maintenance.
I got you.
I have that's their account. They sell the account. They produce the account, and so there's less points of contact. And on the residential side, for us, it works. I have a lot of people that would debate me all day long, but so what we try to do here is every person is responsible for there's a department head that's responsible for the whole department, but then you have managers that are responsible for, you have individual account reps who are responsible for their book of business and their revenue. And we do that throughout both sides of the business. Now, on the larger construction jobs, it's more of a group effort where, the site team goes in, then there's then the hardscape team goes in, and the softscape team goes in, but there's still a project manager overseeing that project.
Okay. Are you using electronic schedule boards? Are you still scheduling manually?
Unfortunately, we are. We're in the process of trying to hire a new controller, which has been a longer process than I thought. And once that is done, we will change our operating.
Well, I know you're organized. It may mean it's kind of work intensive because it's not electronic, but I know you're organized.
Yeah, but we have too much double entry.
Okay,
is the problem. So it's from a paperwork standpoint, it's inefficient at this stage especially for the size of business that we're at.
What pieces of technology are you using to run the business with? Is there anything there we maybe could glean from?
Well, we're running 3 separate businesses, even though we market them under the Joyce Companies. They're 3 separate companies. There's separate tax ID numbers.
Okay.
So like in our lawn care company, we use Real Green Systems, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with.
Oh yeah, excellent program.
Phenomenal operating system for our lawn care business. And I don't think we would have had the success that we've had without that system. In our irrigation business, we're using Hindsight, which is basically a scheduling program, but it's phenomenal for note taking and scheduling and whatever. On the bigger company, Joyce, we've got kind of a homegrown system where we're still running the system. We're running our accounting through QuickBooks, and then everything else is done through systems we've built through Excel.
Okay.
And that's how we're doing it. Like we have so like we have a one tree crew that just does residential pruning, but if you need them for a construction job, you have to book them online, right? So we have like a system that you have to book and like fill out a little form and whatnot.
Okay.
So it's kind of
it sounds like there's some opportunities there, and I know as smart as you are, in the peer groups and so forth that you've been part of with us, man, you listen well, and you're constantly. I mean, when I think of somebody who's passionate about their business, I think of you. I really do. It was so much fun to see your operation. I've seen it a few times, but the last time to spend time with you, go on job sites, see how you work. It's very, very impressive. Trucks and equipment. Tell us a little bit about your philosophy on trucks and equipment. Do you buy new? Do you buy used? Do you have a mechanic? When do you get rid of something? You buy, lease? Just tell us a little bit about your philosophy on equipment.
So we have 2 different, we have when you're buying for maintenance or buying for construction or buying heavy equipment. We buy new, except when it comes to the really large stuff. Sometimes when we're buying a Mack truck for our site division, we will more than not look for a slightly used vehicle just because the costs are so overwhelming. We have our own leasing company. So we have a company called JLC Equipment Corporation, which owns all the equipment for all the companies. And then they lease back to the different companies in the division.
Interesting.
We are old school on the equipment. We're if you look at most people in the industry, they're doing a 7-year cycle, and all the numbers are telling you that. We're not there. I'm a little bit of an old Yankee here sometimes, but we have a full shop. We have a fleet manager and 4 mechanics underneath him. In the heavy site, you need a lot of hands to fix that. We need to do a better job at cycling out equipment, and that's my fault because I like when stuff doesn't have a payment. But it's still and I've known this forever. You either have a payment or you have repair costs. It's the same money.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to say that again.
True.
Say that again.
You either have a payment or you have a repair cost.
Yeah.
And when you're buying and fixing stuff after the fact, meaning when you have a 8-year-old truck that needs a transmission costs a lot more.
Right. Do you buy, lease, pay cash? Tell me a little bit about that.
What we try to do is we have a box that we try to fit into, and meaning we have X number of dollars that we call it our iron per month, per day. It's broken. You divide it by 20 and it tells you. So if we need something and it doesn't fit into that box, we're buying it. We're not, because we're not going over what that number is, which is our overhead structure. But then you're taking money out of operations, So we finance. We like to finance, but if it doesn't fit in the box, we're purchasing.
Okay.
But what we do not, we will not finance a trailer. We don't finance a mower. $15,000 and under, we don't finance anything.
Right. Exactly. Smart. Let's switch one more gears to another part of the business, marketing and sales. What's your philosophy there? What do you do in terms of marketing? I know that you have deep relationships with architects in the area. Is there anything else in sales and marketing that the listeners on the Grow Show Powered by Steel could glean from?
So for the last 3 years, we've spent all our marketing dollars on recruiting, right? So we took our total marketing budget. We were doing radio advertising, and we were doing a Friday night ad on the Boston Red Sox, but locally. Like you could buy a Boston Red Sox ad, but people not in our market weren't seeing it. It was just to our local market. We were doing that and doing some print in some high-end home magazines.
Okay, that makes sense.
We cut all of that. We took all those dollars and put them all towards recruiting because we had more work than we knew what to do with. Now that's changing, right?
Yeah.
So now we going into 24, I think we'll do a hybrid. We will we'll take that budget, spend half of it on marketing and half of it on recruiting.
See, folks, we're with Chris Joyce today from the Joyce Companies on the Grow Show Powered by Steel. Chris, this is what I like about you. You are just a salt of the earth. What's in front of me? How can I adjust? Not going to complain. I'm going to manipulate things here and I'm going to get better. What did you do to recruit and find the people to be fully staffed?
Begged? No. We did a number of things. We went heavy after the food and beverage industry because those people are aging and they're not getting benefits and they're starting to have kids and they're out to midnight and they're drinking and it's not good for their marriages. So we started to break into that a little bit. We forever were a non-Hispanic company. We did not have a Hispanic workforce. 3 years ago, and it's the best thing that ever happened to our organization, was we broke into the Hispanic workforce, and that saved us from the beginning of COVID on. And they're great people. They work hard. They're religious, and they bring good people with them. So that's been a big.
I would agree with you, and I think just about everyone listening is probably shaking their head as well. They've had a similar. It's refreshing to see people with a work ethic that give a darn about their job, and they're actually concerned if somebody's disappointed in their effort. So let's switch gears here just a little bit. You've been coming to Grow in our events. You've been involved in peer groups. You go to other local things, national things. What's your feeling on going to grow, being in a peer group? Why do you do that? What have you learned from those things?
I'm just always want to learn. So, I learn just as much from a presentation as I do from having dinner with someone and well, how are you dealing with this and how's your operation and
Yeah,
how are you purchasing your equipment? And I'm a people person. I like
you
people.
are.
I love to learn. I'm a sponge. I want to get as much information as I can. And I just find that, I will tell you our business changed when we joined at the time was Alka, which is now.
Right,
It just opened my eyes to this is such a much bigger and better industry than
right.
I ever realized. And that's when I started to look at this business completely differently. And that was the leapfrog of me then meeting guys like you and joining peer groups and approaching this that it's an unbelievable profession that we need to get people into and we
Yeah,
need to raise the bar and we need to pay people better.
yeah.
And I probably went to my first Alka event 22 or 23 years ago, and it changed my life and my career forever.
Yeah. Well, and I know you were accountability partners with a gentleman by the name of Matt and Matt Baker from Northern Michigan, and we kind of had like the odd couple. One guy from the middle of nowhere with a guy from the Cape. One guy's gregarious and outgoing. The other guy's a hermit. And you two have formed, I would say, a lifetime friendship, haven't you?
He's my buddy, and we talk all the time. And
Yep.
We see each other at events. We always make sure we go to dinner with our wives, and he's a true friend, and he's always picking up the phone. And I was a gentleman I met through you, and we are complete opposites.
Right.
And you just said it but he's the bright guy.
Yes,
He's
he
an
is.
honest man,
Yes.
and we learn a lot from each other.
Well, and you both have a lot in common too. You're both very good husbands and very good parents. So I'm sure Matt's listening and he's probably laughing right now because that's what you seem to get Matt to do. I think you got Matt to loosen up a little bit, and I think Matt got you to calm down a little bit. So
There's no question.
yeah, it's been a good thing. So I'm going to get a little bit sappy on you, Chris. You're an awesome father and a husband. Why?
It's important, growing up, my parents were divorced since I was 3.5 years old. My dad was always around, but, I made sure when I got married, we dated for 6 years. Like my wife, Allison, came from divorced parents. I came from divorced parents. And, I wanted a friend as well as I wanted a partner, meaning my wife. And, I've coached youth football for 25 years, and I saw so many kids go through that program that didn't have good parents. No one was paying attention to them. And that was probably a big eye opener for me to make sure you get one shot at this.
Wow. Yeah.
And I always say in business, attention equals retention. But it's the same thing with kids. They just want to be loved and they want you to be part of their life. And they want you to know you're there for them and you're there to support them. And you're also there to be stern with them when you need to be, and I have 4 children, which is the greatest joy of my life. It's been, I every day. I mean, my oldest boy is home from college. He's working with me this summer, and it's just been a blast, and the other 3 are, everyone's working and they're good kids. Are they angels? No, God. I mean, I got one kid who's about to be 21 years old. I got another one who's 19 and, they're in college and they still think they're in college. I'm like, okay, well, we go to bed here before midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning. And, but it's been a blast. We did, all the sports together as kids and they've got good friends. But being a husband and a dad is my two, and being a brother and a son, all of that combined, right. I think part of the big picture.
Well, I always like being around you, Chris. We have a lot in common, and I watch how you are as a husband and a parent, and I learn. And it is about the time and the attention that we share. You can go on wonderful trips, you can buy your kid a new car, you can do all that stuff. But what you said there, I think, is so true. They just want to be loved, and they want to know you're there for them, and that you're interested in them. And really not a whole lot different than our employees. A little bit not as strong, I understand. A little bit the same with our clients. They want to know you care about them. They want to know you're paying attention to them. I mean, I think there's a lot of lessons there that you've shared with us here on the Grow Show, powered by Steel, that are very, very helpful. Chris, what do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for doing it the right way and improving it. So if I had an employee that worked for me for 30 years, they at the end of 30 years, they said, wow, that was a great experience. Or a competitor says that Chris Joyce was a good guy and he tried to always do it right and make the industry better. You know, I just, I remember once I listened to someone talk about their dad and my friend, and he said he always did it the right way. And that's kind of how I just want to be the guy that did it the right way.
Yeah. Well, you're well on your way there, Chris. I think I know you're doing it the right way. What would you tell your 25-year-old self to do and not do?
Oh God, business or just
anything?
Yeah. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes early on here. I thought I was growing this great business and spinning my wheels, and we were doubling the business in a year, and we weren't making a dime. We're on the verge of bankruptcy a couple of times. I wish as smart as I thought I was an idiot. And I wish I had I wish I was an operator, but I didn't pay attention to the back end early on. And I would just tell anyone who's young in the industry, hire the best accountant, hire the best lawyer, set up your books, be legitimate, and do everything to build a business. Be a business person first and a landscaper second. Okay.
Wow. Be a business person first and a landscaper second. That's tremendous advice.
When you put those two together, you'll be the best landscape professional.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
And I was a landscaper, and happy being a landscaper, but I also realized it's non-sustainable. And, I spun my wheels for a bit. Once we figured it out, I'm like, all right, this isn't overly challenging.
Right.
But I think, and I just think you also, as a leader, and you're going to start attracting people to come work for you, make sure you're there to be there for them and to make sure you're setting them up for success, not putting them in difficult situations. I'm fortunate to be where I'm at today because we made a lot of dumb mistakes and, didn't have the safest work. Now that I'm looking back at what we did, we did some dumb stuff and we persevered through it. And I had some loyal people that stood by my side, but it was some humble beginnings here.
Yeah, well, for sure. And when I see you, as I listen to you tell that story, I think that's part of what drives you today. I mean, when we were there that Saturday morning, you had a whole bunch of people in work and you knew every single person's name and you were having personal conversations with them, checking in, and they were glad to see you. And I think when we are appreciative of the struggles that we went through and the path that we took, some of this becomes manifested in our leadership style on a daily basis. And I give you kudos for that, Chris Joyce. You're a good man. What's on the horizon for you and the Joyce Companies? What's your succession plan? And if you don't have one, it's okay. I just wanted to ask you that.
Very good question. And now that I'm going to be 52 on August 9th, gift cards, small cash donations, whatever you'd like to send me.
Yeah.
It's a good question. And I can't answer that. And I wish I could, but I don't have an answer. I'm still passionately engaged every single day in what I do, but I can't do it forever, but I'm here to do this for a long time.
Yeah.
We're just continually here trying to hone in and fine tune our model, which is build the landscape and maintain the landscape.
Right.
And do better at it every single year, and develop people. We're starting to attract some young, energized people to our organization, which for a while here, everyone in management was the same age, which was not healthy. And we're starting to turn the tide here a little bit and attract some young people. And that's going to be a big goal for us. But we don't have these audacious goals of, okay, we're going to go into another market. We're going to continue to fine tune what we do, get better at it. And I think the next big move we'll have will be a satellite because we're getting too big and losing efficiencies of having this large of an operation out of here.
No, it makes sense. Well, Chris, it's been great to be with you. I know you really, really well, but as I listen to you here and I'm like dialed in and interviewing you, I'm realizing something else about you. And that is that you really don't talk too much. You know who you are, you know what's important, and you're very, very focused on that. And you're a feel guy for your business. You have a very good feel for what's going on, and you're in there, and you love your job, and you love your family. I mean, those are some basic things that, I hope people think of me what I'm thinking of you right now in terms of your approach. And you need to know that you've helped a lot of people being with us today on The Grow Show.
Thank you, Marty. And I've enjoyed this. And thank you to anyone that took 35 minutes out of their day to listen to us.
Hey, it's great. Now, listen, we would be really remiss if we didn't end this episode with something you're known for. Can you do it for me?
Woo!
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Joyce from the Joyce Companies on The Grow Show, powered by Steel. Chris, thanks again. Love you, brother. All right. So long, everyone. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Grow Show. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and head to growgroupinc.com for more information and resources to grow your landscaping business. A special thanks to the folks at Steel, whose support makes this podcast possible and whose reliable handheld power equipment makes our jobs easier daily. We'll talk to you next week.